Sometimes, after a long day, you just want to slip into some sweatpants and enjoy the simpler things. Maybe a pizza, perhaps a beer, and a nice, relaxing, post-apocalyptic RPG. Ah, the good old days. Well, hold on to your drawstring waists, my fellow hunters, because we're going to explore one of the classics of the post-apocalyptic subgenre, riffs. If Rifts were a pizza, it would have the works. It's got magic, it's got cyberware, it's got zombies, it's got aliens, it's got dragons, it's got superheroes, it's got time travel, demons, it's got anchovies. Well, wait, okay, so it doesn't have anchovies, but it does have this race of mer people. I mean, they have their own world book and everything, so that counts, right? Tonight I have the honor and privilege of interviewing for a second time Sean Patrick Fannon of Beagle Games, who has been working on Savage World Rifts since the very beginning. Maybe he'll even comment on the anchovy thing. Wait, what? No? You sure? Okay, alright. It looks like he won't be making any pizza-related commentary at this time. But it should be fun anyway. I hope you enjoy.
There's never been another presentation of the original Rifts material in a different game system. It's always been under Palladium, and Rifts, of course, came out in 1990. They've been publishing pretty steadily since then. So you got a quarter century worth of products that have come out under the Palladium system through Palladium books for this, like what I like to call the post-apocalyptic superheroic action featuring cybernetic ninjas, dinosaurs, super science, super sorcery, pretty much anything and everything, including a weaponized kitchen sink.
Yeah.
That's the setting as it's always been, with all the holes in time space where anything and everything can come through. But there's all this deep canonical story to the setting as well. I mean, you have the Coalition, and you have the Federation of Magic, and you have Northern Gun and Triax and the Vampire Kingdoms. What is interesting about the Savage Rifts project, what you said, what makes it unique, is that, of course, it's taking all of that material and starting a new way to play it, a different game system that gives a new window on the world and a new interface, if you will, with which to play it. A type of game system that does play significantly differently from the original Palladium system, and there's a lot of people who love that system. They love how that game works and continue to play it faithfully and lovingly, and that is awesome. I'm a big believer in there's no wrong way to have fun, but we have a couple, I would say 2 generations at least worth of new gamers who have not really had much of an interface, who may have heard of Rifts or may not have, but they certainly don't have the foundation for a more involved game system such as the very, very deep and involved Palladium game system is. So for them, having Savage Rifts means they have a new doorway, a new interface to this world that is perhaps for them more appealing. It's a way that they will enjoy getting into this world and getting a chance to explore this world for the first time. And so it's a new way to play one of the great classics of all time. We've had a way to reflect and embrace the flavor and the history and the feeling of a Rifts experience, but doing so interpreted in a Savage Worlds way. And that's really going to be a very interesting and new experience for everybody who jumps into this thing. Rifts combat is one where you kind of dive in and there's a whole lot of hit points or MDC points, and you're rolling dice, and it can take a little while to chew through that. But I mean, that's classic hammer and tong. Throw those numbers and try to find a unique way to throw a spell that's going to throw that one villain off or whatever. Whereas in Savage Worlds, the Savage Worlds version of Rifts, you can actually have 20 or 30 dead boys and skelebats out there, and because of the way the rules work on extras, you can have this big blowout firefight that you can resolve maybe 15, 20 minutes.
Oh, all right.
And then get on to the big bad, which maybe there's some wild card high-level soldiers, and there's the UA one enforcer and a couple of Samus armors, and then that phase of the battle gets a little bit more intense because these guys are wild cards. Maybe there's a few more tactical choices, like I've really got to move, shoot, and take cover, because otherwise, that thing's going to blow right through me. I got to get out of the way. So there's that. I think Savage Worlds really reflects action cinema, comic book style combat, pulp style, those kinds of things. You're going to get definitely a lot of that kind of experience playing any Savage Worlds game, quite frankly. Even the dark horror ones, when it's time for someone to bring out the gun or the sword or the stick of dynamite, there's still that, there's some sort of a pulp and cinema action kind of feel there, but it's going to be kind of cranked up to 11 in Savage Worlds. There's no question about that. Well, 1990 was the release of the first Rifts book. At that point, Palladium had put out a few other things. I don't, off the top of my head, remember exactly what order, but they were known for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mechanoids, which I think Mechanoids was the first book they put out. And they've got a number of different properties, which, quite frankly, when Rifts came out, it became the linchpin that connected all of those properties into what was known as the Megaverse.
Right.
Because these holes through time-space allowed anything and everything to be combined, and Kevin endeavored to make the rules work in such a way as that you could take all those other Palladium settings and all those other Palladium ideas and mix them together in a blender of awesome in this new crazy post-apocalyptic world. And that's been going on ever since. Rifts became, I think, the real centerpiece for Palladium, and continues to be their most important property, and certainly their most popular. And not only has it been constant release of books, but the books have also advanced the storyline. So there's an ongoing meta plot aspect to it, where historical parts, they started 101 PA, now it's 109, closing in I think on 1010 PA according to the Rifts calendar. We've had the Siege of Tolkien, which is one of the major fantasy settings, or not fantasy, sorry, fantasy kingdoms in the Rifts North America part of the world. The Coalition went to war with them, and over the course of 6 core books and some other stuff, they ultimately won. In fact, we play off of that with the aftermath of the fall of Tolkien. That's where the Savage Rifts property is coming out. We actually established as part of the story that in the aftermath of that, refugees looking for different places of safety and to get away from the Coalition, they were brought south to what we're calling Castle Refuge, which is the location, the headquarters of what we're calling the Tomorrow Legion, which is sort of our adventuring paradigm, if you will. The other question that you asked was about how we came to be involved in this, and I just recently put out a design diary that was part of one of our updates on the Kickstarter, and somebody picked up on the line. I said that quite a few years ago when we first talked to Kevin about this, so they realized this thing has been in discussion now for a number of years. It was an initial conversation with Kevin when I went up. I was still working for Drive-Thru RPG and RPG Now as communications and helping with business development, stuff like that. And I was still doing freelance work, but primarily most of my work and most of my efforts were for the Drive-Thru RPG and RPG Now sites. And I worked out with my boss Steve Wick to go and visit with Kevin, because we'd been trying to convince Kevin that he should put books up in PDF, and he'd been resistant for a good long while. But he welcomed me to come up and visit with him, so I drove up from Alabama at the time, and managed to convince him that, hey, why don't you try some of your older stuff that you don't really have in physical stock, and see how that does first, and then once you start making some money on that, you'll see what you want to do. And he seemed very pleased with the idea, and we went forward, and I said, well, I've got you in a good mood. I'm kind of paraphrasing here. It was a longer conversation, but I said, I have this crazy idea that I think would be a lot of fun. So I proposed, hey, why don't we look at introducing Rifts to a whole new audience here, and if you don't mind, I'd like to explore doing it with Savage Worlds. And he was perfectly like, yeah, sounds like a great idea. A lot of people were like, well, how long did it take you to convince Kevin? It took me a day to convince Kevin. The thing is, Shane and I, and everybody else at the Pinnacle team, It took us some years to make sure we had everything lined up the way we wanted to do it, that we had the right team in place, that we had the right slot in terms of time and development, because he had a number of other projects that he was committed to. And the thing is, Pinnacle's all about the quality, and so is Evil Beagle, which is my publishing company, and we're doing this actually in partnership with them. But I'm also very proud to be considered a member of the Pinnacle team as well. It's all one big happy family. And the thing is, we all committed that it was going to be right, or we weren't going to do it at all. So that meant waiting until all the proper things were in place. Then there was the development time, and I got to tell you, this has been one of the most challenging Actually, no, this is flat out the most challenging development project I have ever done. I've never designed anything more involved than this, because again, taking 20-something years, and it's now 26 years worth of published material and an established world, and finding the right ways to translate that into an established game system that is highly beloved and very popular, and its adherents want to see stuff published that is, that's done right, and that doesn't break the system or doesn't feel like it's not, it needs to feel like a Savage Worlds. So making it feel like Rifts as well as making it feel like Savage Worlds, that's been one heck of a tango that I've been dancing for a while. It's been a lot of work, but it's been a lot of fun. We decided to use a concept what we call iconic frameworks, which isn't a class, but it helps take the place of that. Mm-hmm. And I think people have already expressed some excitement when they look at the Glitter Boy, for example. That's the first iconic framework we put out publicly for everybody to see and see how that works, which is you build a normal character, just like any other Savage Worlds character. Then you take this iconic framework and kablam, just drop that on top of this novice character, and that is going to give you all these cool powers and abilities that you get to start out with right off the bat. Mm-hmm. Right, the Juicer starts off with all these, basically super soldier abilities. The Techno Wizard gets to start out with all these amazing abilities to have these magical devices and to make more on the fly, and so on and so forth. So I think that's the thing that most people are going to be immediately excited about. They're going to open this book up. They're going to go crazy just looking at, how do they do this? How to do this? How do I build the character that I want to build? With the addition of rules from scratch, building something you want to play in Savage Rifts, because it's sitting right there as well. We can't say, if you just want to go from scratch and build your own power concept, there it is. Go nuts. Yes, this is an old school property that we're bringing forward, an RPG relic, if you will, in the best possible term of that, because this is one of the defining games of the genre. It's one of the defining games of 1990. It was a groundbreaking game, and I hope people will agree that we're doing justice to it, and then I hope that we're successful in the main goal, which was to take this fantastic property and to bring it forward to 2016 and really excite a whole bunch of people who may have heard of it, may have enjoyed it, or weren't sure about it, and a whole bunch of people who've never heard of it, and get them excited about this extremely deserving property.
Savage Worlds and Rifts, what an awesome combination. I'm going to see if Sean can make a Relic Hunter iconic framework for my very favorite OCC, the Tolkien Artifact Hunter. Thank you, Sean, for spending some time with me and my fellow hunters, and best of luck to the Kickstarter in its last week. If you would like to see the last episode with Sean, check out the link to Aaron Alston's Strike Force. If you want to subscribe, click the link on the Coalition Grunt, unless you're some dirty DB-loving betrayer of humanity, in which case, click on the Leyline Walker. Your choice will be polled, so we can find out how many of you out there are pro-Coalition and how many are pro-Magic. So please make your vote heard, and remember to play like the dice are trying to kill you, because they are.